Hello and welcome to this episode of the Top Rogue Podcast. I am Jed, aka Snow, the rogue behind ClassicRogueCraft.com. So this week we're taking a first look into early AQ40 raid strategy for rogues. We welcome back Fjeenzy, the rogue class lead of Progress. So if you didn't know already, Progress was the #1 guild for clear times in Phase 4 of Classic WoW. And they're of course looking to push for similar results in AQ and in Phase 5. Now obviously this is a super early look at AQ40 strategy for rogues. There's definitely going to be more strategy changes coming up as people refine their strategies for passing and clearing. I'll of course be creating my in-depth rogue guides for AQ40 boss strategies later on, once everyone kind of has a better handle on exactly what is working best for rogues. I just didn't feel like it was the right timing to do it now while all the strategies are changing week to week, and a lot of places don't even have the gates open yet. So for now, I thought a first take on what to do as a raiding rogue in AQ40 right now would be handy, especially for those of you who are coming into AQ for the first time. As always, this video is brought to you by you guys. I release bonus video guides for Twitch subs, so if you like my free content and want to support Classic Roguecraft while getting yourself extra rogue tutorials every week, you can head over to twitch.tv/snowme and hit that subscribe button. There's a bonus rogue tutorial video every week just for Twitch subs in the extra sub channel of my Discord. So head over to twitch.tv/snowme and hit that subscribe button. I stream regularly and you help support Classic Roguecraft. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so Fjeenzy recorded his last raid for me from his rogue's perspective, which was the progress run where both him and Xander got top 5 rankings for All-Stars. So even though they both made mistakes here and there, we can at least get a good look at the basic fights and how rogues should roughly perform in AQ40. I'm going to explain the basic fight outlines super quickly, then we're going to jump into my discussions with Fjeenzy for each fight. Alright, so Skeram, basically at 75%, 50%, and 25%, Skeram splits into 3 versions. 2 of them are clones and 1 of them's the real one. Basically you just kill the clones and then go back and hit Skeram again until he splits, and that's basically the whole fight. Right now a lot of raids are kind of putting rogues as kickers. So for example, for my first raid I was designated as a kicker, which means my only job was to stand in one of the locations and kick Skeram to make sure he doesn't cast his spells. Overall, this fight is super simple. It's not hard to mess up. If it's your first time going into AQ, I wouldn't worry too much about the DPS. And as you get faster, like you can see here in Progress's run, they don't even really need kickers all that much. They kind of kill the clones super quick before they cast a lot of the times. So Skeram on the whole, he's kind of almost like a joke boss. He's not very hard. You're going to pop your Cane protection potion beforehand and he's gonna fall over for most people.
I don't know. There's not much to say about that fight. I guess it's it's not a very compelling thing. It's just like depending on how your guild decides to do it. You know, the one thing you need to mind is the blade flurry usage. Yeah? It's like, I mean, you could potentially cleave someone, and we also noticed that the mind control is like. Most likely aggro based, so if you have Blade Flurry up and you cleave a warrior with the Blade Flurry, he might, you know, turn and actually like 1 or 2 shot you. So you need to like not use Blade Flurry on that. Since I have like a very reactive kind of playstyle myself, I usually just tend to use Blade Flurry on the trash pack before, so I can't use it on the boss, just in case I get, you know, a dumb idea in my head.
Okay.
But we noticed one thing that is worth mentioning. It is that, I mean, the mind control does, when someone is mind controlled, it deals a lot of damage. Like I had deep wounds ticking on me for 2k when a Fury Warrior crit me. So it's very high damage. So you really want to stay away from people and CC them as fast as possible.
Would you worry about preemptively popping evasion at all?
Well, yeah, if you see like a melee getting mind control next to you, you should probably pop evasion.
Yeah, okay. So
it is a good idea.
I mean, obviously Skeram's kind of a bit of a joke boss at the start, but do you bother splitting up your rogues at all to kick stuff? Because I know my guild split up the rogues at the start just to kick stuff, but obviously it felt almost like a bit of a waste because I was just standing at one side. I got the kicks in, but I didn't really do much the rest of the fight.
No, I mean a safe play, I guess, but it's very redundant because the ads dies dependent on your DPS lineup, of course. But I mean the ads die so fast. It's sometimes usually they don't even get a cast off, right? I think the only thing worth discussing on that fight is basically survivability, because it is one of those fights that is super easy, but it can also cause a death very very quickly if you get that like some I don't know, like a bad timed Arcane Explosion together with a mind control, and that guy targets you, you might be out of all buffs very fast if you don't pay attention.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess the one thing that should be mentioned is obviously if you want to be safe, you pop the Arcane Protection Potion just to be safe. But yeah. I mean overall, I don't think anyone's really having issues with Skeram on the whole.
No. It will be the occasional death if you don't play carefully, but apart from that, it's not one of those bosses where, I mean, your DPS is pretty relevant as well. Like I don't really mind someone doing 200 DPS there, because if that probably just means they're kicking and doing nothing at all.
All right, so I mean, the trash after Skeram, I guess, is where it starts getting things start coming up. So, what do you recommend there for rogues approaching those ads? Because some of those packs, everyone positions with like the back towards the wall, and then you kind of get repeatedly hit up the wall. For a sword rogue, it's less of a pain, but for a dagger rogue, do you recommend that the dagger rogues swap to like a fist or a sword there because they can't backstab?
Yeah, I do for sure. Because I mean, the whole idea of putting them up, up towards the wall and stacking the raid so you get knocked together and not away, kind of is based on the fact that you don't nuke one ad too fast, because if you do, then that ad is going to charge someone that hasn't yet made his way up to the boss. So you definitely shouldn't backstab those ads. That it would only result in you getting aggro and being in a bad position. So I would definitely recommend putting on a fist or a sword and just sinister striking for all those packs.
Okay. Well, while we're on the topic, what are your thoughts on sword versus dagger so far on in AQ?
Well, I mean, I can't really have my own opinion on daggers because I haven't tried it. But from what our one dagger rogue in the guild is, actually we have two now, but the guy that has been running daggers for 2 resets now, he has been very annoyed at trash packs and certain bosses like Skeram and Sartura to some degree until you get things sorted, but mostly like mostly Skeram and Katoon is very very annoying. Ouro can be very angering as well as daggers.
Oh, I know that. That's for sure.
if you don't play like if you don't have tanks and ranged, everyone exactly like on point on what they're doing, Ouro can be a pain in the ass for daggers as well, because it's gonna turn towards melee so much it's not even funny. Generalizing with it, I mean, swords do have a very very high advantage in AQ to begin with, at least. Like it could very well be the case that you have like as soon as you get really comfortable playing all bosses, daggers might get a head start, and it might be even better for parsing, especially. But there's too much trash as well that is dagger unfriendly for me to see it like in the near future, at least the first batch of speedruns being a viable spec. I do think Sword is gonna prevail there, and Swords also gain more from both the new tier sets, as in Darkmantle and 2.5. So Swords did get a pretty high boost in AQ, and I do prefer to play it because it's just easier.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much stuff there. Yeah. I mean, like, I didn't see any major differences in a lot of the passes for Sword and Dagger Rogues, but for sure, it's the trash is where I see, like, the biggest difference. Besides, like, obviously, like, Cthulhu and such. So, after the trash, I saw you guys did Bug Trio this time next. Was there anything special? I don't think there's anything special about Bug Trio for really anyone, right? It's pretty much just tanking Spank for the Rogues, and then I saw you did Sapper the ads after killing Princess.
Yeah,
that was about it.
Yeah, we separate ads. I mean, could be argued that you don't if you want to save it for some trash pack, but I mean, yeah, there isn't really much to say about that fight either. Yeah. It's super easy. Get the fuck away from the poison cloud. Have your tanks and like taunt ads ASAP. and as in the new boss, because they charge, and I think they aggro reset as well when they charge. So you should be careful every time you kill a boss. The new one charges into the middle, and I think the aggro is reset. I'm not 100% sure about that though.
Okay, yeah.
But it seemed that way.
Okay, well, I mean,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's a fairly easy boss.
Yeah, nothing special going on there. For Sartura, it's a fairly easy fight again, but this one does include some rogue assignments. So typically most guilds will assign rogues to be stunning Sartura and the ads. So there's going to be rogue teams, or the rogues are going to be split up and assigned different ads or Sartura, and it's their job to kind of chain CC the ads to stop them from chasing, running around, from basically just killing people. So I did see a bunch of kidney shots going. I guess you guys do it looks like you guys do split the rogues up to kidney shot all the ads and such.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, we use for example, we have, I think it's 4 rogues that are mainly assigned to stunning, as in 1 per ad and 1 on boss. The only one that's a hard stun is the only one that's like an important stun is the boss, where you need to basically like Sinister Strike, Vanish, Cheap Shot, Sinister Strike, Kidney, for it to be an effective stun. That's what we do, at least. I'm sure you can do it in many different ways. You could, for example, have a Paladin stun with the hit trinket active directly if you don't have a rogue that's comfortable doing that. But there's plenty of like different ways to do it.
I saw you ran in and you sap it at the start. I guess that's just to help kill them faster.
Yeah, we AoE them down, and then I mean that fight was. I think I got a very good parse on that one, but it was a very boring parse to get because it was very bad play from my side. I popped evasion, but then I still went out.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about it because you popped evasion, but then you ran out. I was kind of curious why you were running. Yeah.
Brain lag, nothing else. Yeah, I mean, if you want to play that like a kind of a parsing way, you pop evasion, and you just if evasion is about to run out, you just lip and stay in if you really want to like push DPS. I guess I still had like the speedrun mentality in my head, where I just
play it safer,
want to stay out. Yeah, play it safer. But it was still like a really high parse, like it was World 3 or something, which is really worrying considering everything. But I think you will see like...
You are rank 1 mage as well, don't forget that. Or you were rank 1 mage.
I mean, it's too scuffed sample sizes the first few weeks.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least it shows that there likely will be some competition. I'm pretty sure you will see 2K parses on Sartura very soon. It's just a matter of time, I think. People are just way too careful right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so for Fankriss, I don't think there's anything for Fankriss, right? You just walk up and you DPS him. No. I feel that's the entire fight.
Yeah, I mean, what you could be ready with is basically a Vanish Sheep Shot on the snake that comes, because the snake can really one-shot healers. So you kind of have to have some sort of, like, if you're Horde especially, you don't have Paladins with stun ready, you should definitely have a rogue ready on Vanish Sheep Shot on the
ad guy that comes up, yeah.
Yeah. Because they will go for a healer, and if a tank isn't fast enough to pick it up, they should be stunned. So
okay,
that is the one thing. But I mean, we're already reaching the point where we basically don't even get a snake to spawn because it's a worm or whatever.
Fast, yeah.
Because it's so fast kill times, and it's really disappointing in that sense.
Okay, so I think the trash after Fankriss, I didn't see anything special there except I did see you guys sappering on ads, which is fairly standard when you have a big pack like that.
I think we sappered because we pulled 2 packs. I can't really remember, but
yeah, I think it was 2 packs. Yeah,
I think it was a mispull, and we just decided to sapper. But that trash is also very underwhelming. It's super easy to deal with. And I got the impression that private server players basically expected this trash to be hard because it was in private. But here it's super underwhelming in comparison. So it's very easy to deal with. Yeah, I mean it's super easy. But one thing you should have ready there is definitely the poison resistance elixirs, because they have the same. I think those are the stingers, right? That have the same, or swarmers or whatever, that has the same ability as the ones in AQ20, which more or less one shots you if you get charged with that debuff on you. So you should be ready to cleanse yourself there.
By the way, hot tip: these things are selling for a huge amount of money right now.
Yeah, they're super expensive. I don't know what happened with them. Like I figured it would be the different, like be the complete opposite because they were like 5 or 6 gold each pre AQ,
Yeah, for sure.
and then we noticed that we used them way less than we anticipated.
Yeah,
But still, they
like
went up in
yeah, that's
price.
the
I
same
don't
for
know.
me. Like I went in there with like 15, 20 poison elixirs just to be safe. I barely used them, but somehow the
Yeah,
price even on Horde White Main is up to like 8 gold each.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, you really just need it for that trash if you get a debuff and you don't get insta spell. Uh, and then you need it for Viscidus, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing really else you kind of want poison and cleansing for. So I don't know. And for Horde, I suppose that is easier as well with the ticks.
Yeah, with the totems and stuff. Okay, so for Huhuran, okay, so basically during the fight, Huhuran's going to be doing a bunch of poison damage to people. She also does a Wyvern Sting, which has a AoE sleep effect on nearby targets. You can actually mitigate this by popping like a Bearer of Peasant Collar because pets do count towards the targets for Wyvern Sting as well. But overall, honestly, it's not really a hard fight. At 30%, Huhuran does go into a berserk state and starts pumping out those poison bolts more constantly. So basically, your raid just pre-pops nature resist potion and then pops another one during the Huhuran fight, and you're usually good to go as long as you can burn Huhuran down quick enough. How much nature resist do you guys wear? Do you guys even still wear nature resist? Because even for my guild, which isn't as hard, as fast killing as you
Yeah.
guys, like I barely even take damage, and Huhuran just dies.
I think you don't need a single point of like this was something I said before AQ as well. Like sure, the first few weeks you might want to consider some, which we did. We did on the first week. We tried some nature rest. We didn't go full, but we wanted some good pieces. I think I used this week as well. I think I used neck, the Skeram neck, and like maybe some more pieces, just to be safe. Like really good pieces. But I mean, at the rate we're going right now and the kill speeds, you can afford basically dispelling any melee that gets the poison, as long as you have a GMPP pre-popped and either a magic resistance potion rolling or a second nature protection potion ready just in case. I do, however, think that you should instantly dispel melee because if you have the poison, and it reaches below 30%, I think you're pretty dead. So I think dispels should be on point. Most people like don't want to dispel because it creates a burst of damage, But
Yeah.
I don't think that burst is very something you need to focus on. I think it's very very simple to just dispel. I think it's the way to go. And I think nature
Okay.
is super redundant on Huron.
Okay, so for the trash after Huhuran, the Anubis guys, you just have to be aware of which of the random abilities they have. So if they have Meteor, you need to make sure you're stacked up with everyone else because Meteor will basically summon a Meteor on top of a random person, and if you are split away from the rest of the people, then it's going to do a massive amount of damage because the damage is split up among everyone that gets hit by the Meteor. If there's Plague, it's basically just a debuff. If you get Plague, you just run away. That's basically it. Don't stand near people if you have the Plague debuff. Shadow Storm is like an AoE Shadow Bolt volley that deals a lot of damage to people outside of melee range. So if it's Shadow Storm, you want to all run into melee range together. And then Thunderclap, which is honestly the least scary of the abilities. It's not really going to one-shot anyone or do any significant things. Thunderclap is more scary if you get hit by Thunderclap and then by a Meteor or something like that. So it's not too bad. For the trash, I feel like you just need to be paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to which abilities they're doing, and paying attention to what the raid leader is telling everyone to do.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on how you want to enter every mob. I mean, this is like theory crafting about something that's super easy, but I mean, it's like you could go two ways with engaging from range, right? Range could start in melee and move out, or they can start in range and move in. It kind of depends on what you like prefer. If you want to move out for Thunderclap, or if you want to move in for Meteor. It kind of goes like I think it's better to just stay in and then go out because Thunderclap is way less like annoying than Shadowbolt Volley. So
Yeah.
But I mean, no, it's basically like don't be dumb and actually move out with the Plague. That's the one thing that can kill people, and that's something you will get flamed for, So make sure you have a weaker or some add-on that actually, really pinpoints the fact that you get the plague, so you notice and you move out. For the meteor plague combo, right? If you get plague and it's meteor, you don't want to move out too far. You kind of want to stand on minimum range that you need to be out for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw on the
just so you
meteor,
don't hit people.
on your kills, I saw your tank. You guys pretty much just tank it standard, but you just make sure that I guess that your tank doesn't stand too far on the other side. Because I think my guild kind of played it safe in that we had even a tank standing with like on top of the melee, so I couldn't really backstep there, but I felt like I was watching you guys and it was fine. You guys just tanked it normally.
You don't need to, you don't need to turn it towards the melee. You could definitely like tank it in a standard position. The meteor range is fairly big when it comes to shared damage.
Okay, so Twin Emps from a perspective of a rogue, you're pretty much just waiting for the tanks to pull the two Twin Emps opposite corners from each other. And your job as a rogue is actually pretty simple. You just DPS, they're going to teleport, and then you swap to the other side every time they teleport, and you basically just chase one guy back and forth across the room nonstop. And that's pretty much it. And avoid blizzards and exploding bugs. I feel like Twin Emps, it felt like it was just more about optimizing your slice and dice timings and popping cooldowns early so that you get a second use. I think that's what I saw.
Yeah, it's about, I would say Twin Emps is the fight where, the term melee monkeys can shine, because it's like the tanks, the physical tank, as in the warrior tank, usually tanks with a stone shield and a shield on, right? So his snap threat is not going to be amazing. And this is something melee DPS has to respect and not be DPS monkeys, right? They need to actually, wait until he has a bloodthirst hit or whatever. Like, don't hit it directly as soon as he teleports, because you will get aggro and you will ruin the positioning, and most likely, not most likely, but there's a risk you will heal the bosses as well.
Yeah.
So just give the tank like 3 to 5 seconds, right, to get a good initiate before you start nuking, because we noticed several times so far. I mean, I'm tanking it on my ult as well, and I also noticed how annoying it is to get snap threat when you have a shield on, right? And there's plenty of there's theories going around that you can't have people on the stairs, because then the caster twin starts meleeing the warlock, and when a teleport happens, that's pretty scuffed for the tanks. So I think Twin Emps is more of a guild effort thing, where you need to decide as a guild how you deal with it and positioning. But the only tip I can give to melee in that sense is just don't over nuke on transition, because it will just make things worse. And probably kill you as well if you don't have evasion or something pre-popped, which you shouldn't have anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of the stairs thing, I think Jess Wu was telling me his guild had a lot of issues with anyone on the stairs, with the mobs bugging out there.
Yeah, I've seen so, but in our third raid, right, my friend tanks, he's one of the warlock tanks, and he was standing on the stair. It was fine. He never meleed. But then we had another warlock in our main raid that were tanking, or when I was tanking on my warrior, and then we had him running after him and meleeing him and shit. So I don't know what it is that triggers that shit.
Yeah, so
I can't remember that from Classic either.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is just don't stand on the stairs then, to avoid this entire thing happening.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure if it's that. But it could be, but. Yeah. Like I said, I've seen people stand on stairs and it not happening for a whole kill. So I'm not sure what it is that triggers it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, for Twin Emps, besides what we just talked about, what are your thoughts on swapping to the bugs and such and helping kill them? Because I played around with that during our Twin Emps kill, and I felt like every time I swapped to the bugs, I would just lose a lot of combo points, because a lot of times I'd be carrying combo points from teleport to teleport.
It's hard to say. It's very dependent on guild, how your guild does it and what they require from you. I will never swap to a bug in that sense, because it's simply not necessary. We have warriors taking care of that.
Okay.
Or casters if they are in range. So it's like, no, a rogue shouldn't have to. What you could do is basically, if you don't have like a 3 to 5 point stacked on a teleport, and you're ready with a 5 point slice and dice as soon as you reach him, you should be able to hit bugs if they spawn during your run. But I mean, I don't think rogues should be the ones swapping there. It just seems
Yeah.
ineffective.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I didn't find anything special, but like Twin Emps, I guess the only thing that you could really screw up in your rotation there, I guess, is if you like popped a big 5-point slice and dice just before he teleports or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you need to make sure you have like. I think I let Slice and Dice run out a few times when it was like 3 or 4 seconds left to it for a teleport, and just make sure I had 4 or 5 combo points up instead.
Yeah.
Ready for the next teleport. I want to add one more thing though on Twin Emps, and it's the fact that the melee mob is poison immune, right? So you should swap to sharpening stones there.
True. Yeah.
Double crit stone if you're alliance, or sharpening crit and crit for offhand on horde.
Yeah.
Minor thing if you really want to push.
So trash after Twin Emps. I didn't find anything fancy. The only thing I saw was like the Mind Flayers. You either run really far away from them or line of sight them before they die so that you don't get feared.
Yeah. I'm not really happy with the way we do it. I think there's plenty of better. There's plenty of improvements to be made. But as you said, you kind of want to. It's a very, very big range on that. On the terror effect.
It feels like you can't run away. It feels like you have to line of sight a lot of times if you want to do it.
Yeah, you can line of sight them. That is probably the best idea. But however, when you have to run away, once you start running into the room and stuff, you just need to. That's a guild thing as well, right? A guild effort thing where you basically coordinate how you want to do it, just inside of your guild. Like, how do you do it, and then stick with it. We are very melee heavy, so we noticed very many problems with killing those things off. And I had some comments on the Rogue Discord saying, "Well, you're Alliance, it's easy." There's no difference because Fear Ward doesn't work on that effect. It's not a fear effect; it's a terror effect. The same way Death Coil. So you cannot break Berserker Rage can't break it either. So like there's no way to cheese that. You just have to kill it like. In a good way. We have a few like changes coming probably just to try out a few different things of the way of optimizing it, because the way we are doing it right now, the way you can see it in the video and like Tetsu's stream and stuff, it's not an effective way of doing it. It's just it needs improvement. And I also understood there from my Dagger rogue that it's a super annoying trash to play as daggers. They keep on turning and like probably the one of the biggest cock blocks for Dagger rogues in AQ. So this is probably another one of those scenarios where you want to put on a claw or a sword and just Sinister Strike, because it's rather pointless to even bother trying to backstab there.
Yeah,
you can put on a backstab. I mean a dagger again and start backstabbing once you kill the small ones and are about to go on the big one or something like that.
Okay, so Ouro or Ouro, however you're supposed to say it. This fight seems to be all about Sandblast management. So the Sandblast AoE is a threat decrease. It's a massive amount of damage and it hits AoE targets. So it goes out in the direction he's facing on the highest aggro target at the time. So the entire fight seems to be about how guilds can manage the Sandblast, and the strategy seems to change depending on how guilds choose to do this. So Nature Resist were actually super useful for the Sandblast because it does a bunch of damage and it's nature based. And there's some other little bits and pieces here, like I saw some people were even using the Sandblast in some strategies to lower their own threat. If they were high as a melee on threat, they would go get hit by Sandblast on purpose.
It's a very reactive fight, right? If you get aggro, you could like potentially get aggro as a rogue, right?
Yeah.
But by having everyone else, I mean, either you just don't watch threat and you're pumping really hard, or the fact that everyone else just tank fuck ups and everyone else just gets swept out because of some reason. Then you can get aggro. You need to evasion it and be really on your toes. The most important part is that you figure out a way as a guild how to deal with the Sandblast, right? Because that's the biggest problem. Yeah. I don't think we've ever wiped on Ouro yet, but there's been a few kills where we've had plenty of deaths. Just because Sandblast is just rinsing the raid. Which is like it's only caused because of bad handling of the boss. It's not RNG. It's just if you get aggro, because of the tanks, the tanks probably fucked something up if you do get aggro. But it's a very easy fight to fuck up as a tank in that sense. So you need to be very, very fast with like if you're a mage, you blink out or you pre-position in a way where the raid can easily move away and the guy that gets the sandblast stands still. There's probably 50 ways of doing this. You just need to figure out one, and stick to it. But it's very reactive that the guy that gets the sandblast targeted is not pointing towards the raid, right?
Yeah.
And it's also one of these fights where you could argue nature protection potions are very good, because sandblast is nature, if I don't remember correctly.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Wrong. So GMPPs very, very much help here. Hunter should probably use nature as aura as well. And I mean, if you've got some really good nature res pieces, it could be worth using if you're progressing on it.
So I noticed you guys just kind of, because you guys have crazy high DPS, you guys just one-phased it and everyone stayed in and just DPS'd them down. Did have people telling me that some people recommend dodging the sweeping strikes by like going out and in and such? I
recommend dodging it by dodging it. I recommend dodging it by dodging it, basically.
Just pop evasion?
Just put pop evasion, or that's also one of those things where, like, I argue you should use a few more points in parry and dodge in the combat tree in AQ, since you can remove improved backstab, right? You can just put those points into parry. There's plenty of ways to dodge that, and I mean, if you get a knock, it's not the end of the world.
On the whole, I don't feel it's like super complicated for the rogue side. It just felt like it just required the entire raid understanding the sandblast and such.
Yes. It is one of those, wiping fests. I haven't seen a submerge yet in either of our 3 raids, but I assume if you have very low DPS in a guild, or if you have like problems, lots of people dying, or it's a pug or something, then I would assume you could see a submerge phase as well.
Okay, so Cthulhu really quickly for rogues who might be new to the Cthulhu fight. You basically run in at the start with the rest of your raid, then you spread out depending on how your guild chooses to spread out. Then when Dark Glare happens, you kind of run around him and DPS him until he's dead, and that's phase 1. Then in phase 2, if you get swallowed, you help DPS the tentacles in the stomach, and then you jump back out if you're taking too much damage. And if you're outside, you're just killing everything, and that's basically the Cthulhu fight. A lot of it is just the running in procedure. I see you guys do the 2 melee stack strat on like the around Cthulhu during phase 1. Any particular reason for that, or is it just the best one that you found?
It's just the way private server players are used to doing it.
Okay.
I think there's plenty of ways you can do both the entering and the actual phase 1. What you want to do, which is like basic for everyone, is that you only want 2 people stacked at each other at any given time. So if you're a melee that's assigned to DPSing the boss, you never want to go out and help with tentacles in phase 1. You just stand static on your position and you don't move. I've on our first AQ Cthulhu kill, I died because I was DPSing the boss and a guy basically got knocked into me, and as he got knocked, he also got targeted by the beam, and it was a 3 chain, and I got hit last. So there are those kinds of things, like that was more or less unavoidable, right? The one thing he could have done is basically he could have that was arranged, and he could have stood further away from melee so he wouldn't get knocked and had time to move away closer. But it's just those things are going to happen, right? And you're going to lose people to it. I don't think I've seen, or at least from our side, a single Cthulhu without a death, because there's always some random shit happening like to someone.
Oh, I mean, I've seen so many clips of people just getting like knocked up and then like getting eye beamed or something, just unlucky, just really bad timing. Yeah.
Some of those things are going to happen, like they're just going to happen, right? But I think some are avoidable and some are just going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so I mean, during phase 1, you guys just do the 2 melee stack strat, then everyone DPSs when he does the Dark Glare, and you run in a circle, kind of. And then I guess phase 2, I guess you guys do what everyone else does and targets the big eyes first, typically, and that's pretty much it. Yeah,
we just kill everything, really. I mean, it barely has any HP. The big claw tentacles, you kind of need to make sure that the tank has aggro, because it can one-shot you very easily otherwise. So I'd suggest some care when it comes to those. But apart from that, it's just a very, very easy phase in that sense.
Yeah. Any thoughts on where the back is for Cthulhu? I mean, I think from what I can tell, it's the 180 degrees facing the entrance. Is that right?
It's roughly the entrance. Yeah, it's the entrance. We did it the wrong way in the start. I think, I'm not sure if it was a private server thing where his ass was towards the stairs, as in the throne thingy, the gong.
Yeah.
But here it is towards the entrance, so you kind of want to stack the whole raid in phase 2 towards the entrance side. So that's where you need to be if you have dagger rogues. I mean, you should be there as a sword or a warrior as well, because you don't want parries, because that brain of Cthulhu still parries apparently, even though it's weakened. So yeah, it's a communicative fight. You need to make sure, like if you want to do it in one phase, for example, which we have done, and I think 2 or 3 of our raids now, is basically like you need to make sure that you don't have any tentacles up as you kill the last tentacle inside.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. And then there's the entrance thing. How do you plan on entering? Like if you don't have any mounts, do you want to do a Congo line where people stand in a line and walk in one by one with 10 yards range? Or do you want to have a guy run in? Do you want to use Skull of Impending Dooms, etc.? Like you just need to find a way of entering if you don't have full mounts. And from what we've gathered, he always does at least 2 beams on the first guy entering, so you should have plenty of time to position.
Yeah.
But I mean, those entering Cthulhu is probably the hardest part about the fight.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Viscidus. Now, the common way most people are doing this is you freeze Viscidus with your freezing weapons and wands and such. Then you break him after you freeze him, and then he explodes into a whole bunch of little goblets and things in a circle around the room. And then when the goblets come in close, you blow them up with sappers, or if you don't have sappers, you kind of chase the goblets down in groups or in duos, and you DPS them down. And then hopefully you've killed enough goblets that you can either 1-phase Viscidus or 2-phase Viscidus. This was an interesting one. I felt like everyone kind of didn't really think much about Viscidus, and he seems to be the one that's wiping the most guilds right now.
We did run into some problems with our third raid, with our social/alt raid, mainly because I think people slacked on consumes, but there's also different aspects to that fight that can wipe you. This is the kind of fight where you basically want everyone in full nature rest gear, as in casters especially, since casters are meant to just wand. They don't really need hit from gear or anything of the sort, so they should definitely be in full nature rest gear. Healers, however, could be argued they need to have less, right? Because they kind of need healing output. Apart from that, all ranged DPS outside of hunters should likely be very stacked on nature rest. It's even more important, in my opinion, on casters than it is on melee. Melee still needs some. I mean, you need to be hit capped at least in order to freeze them fast enough. But outside of that, you should be able to reach hit cap very fast, and your actual DPS doesn't really matter in that sense. Hit is the most important stat there. I mean, you just want to use max nature rest, right? And you want to spam consumes. You want to. I think the absolute best way of doing it is pre-popping a nature protection potion, making sure you know when the pull is about to happen. You pop a magic resistance potion if you don't have a hunter in your group, and then you pre-pop a second nature protection potion as well. There's different kind of combos to maximize your nature protection uptime there. For Horde, I suppose it will be cheaper because you don't really need poison cleansing elixirs in the same sense. But Alliance needs to spam it as much as possible, and you also need to make sure. The one thing we did notice in one of our raids is that healers can get aggro because he resets his threat right after the blob phase.
Yeah.
So if the healers have to heal a lot during the blob phase, that healer will likely die because he will get aggro, and it's very hard for tanks to out threat that kind of healing that he's putting out during that phase. So especially during the blob phase when you AoE and shit, you need to take care of your own HP. Healers shouldn't have to heal there. And then of course it is the sapper, right? You try to sapper down as many adds as possible. You should jump while sappering, so you hit even more targets. I have run into some issues though. I think twice on both my warrior and my rogue, I jumped and sappered, and there was mobs up, but it just didn't hit anything.
I swear I did a good sapper, and I did 118 damage. I don't even understand how my sapper did 118 damage.
Yeah, I think we are most likely doing something wrong, right? But if you look at my VOD, I think it shows there as well where I jump and sapper. I'm pretty sure I am just too late doing it, right? But it did seem very weird because I think I jumped when there was still adds up, and I pressed Sapper in the air and just didn't hit anything. And this kind of needs more research, I think, because I'm not sure what causes that. Because you definitely, I did jump on my mage and I hit loads of them on one of our attempts there at least. So there's plenty of ways of doing it. Like you should try to get as many down as possible because you can easily one face him in that sense. It doesn't require any kind of effort apart from the fact that you need like more or less the whole raid to be engineers.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of that, what are your thoughts if they're not engineers? Because I think like I mean for my guild it's not too bad because most of us are engineers, but there's gonna be like less hardcore guilds where a lot of people aren't engineers.
Yeah.
Then do you kind of do? I saw like you were kind of chasing the goblets at the start, and and you were like getting them a bit lower to make it easier to sapper some of those. Would that be what they would do then, or?
I mean that's what everyone should do, right? I mean you should most definitely chase a few down and try to kill them. You could I figure like we haven't done it, but you could assign sides like this group takes this side, etc. But I mean that's just a problem you kind of avoid if you have sappers, right? So there is. I suggest everyone to get engineering. Like I can't fathom a single way of like maybe if you don't have an alt you need a second gathering profession or something, but I mean you should have engineering if you're somewhat serious about raiding, and if you aren't at all, then I guess bite the bullet and wipe on Viscidus and pay high repair bills. I don't know what to say. Like it's just one of those fights where engineering really shines, and I mean engineering is just super good in raids because especially in AQ where there's loads of trash, you get so much value out of dense dynamites and sappers on the trash as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if you weren't engineer before for BVL and AQ, I mean MC, I mean I understand that because there wasn't really any big need for it. Maybe Goblin packs could be argued, but here in AQ there's actual like need for engineering in some sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sounded too harsh, but I do think it's very important that you have engineering. It makes the Viscidus fight so much easier.
Oh, for sure. Like I couldn't even imagine doing Viscidus without engineering, but yeah. So I guess that's all the bosses really. I do have a bunch of random questions people ask though.
Yeah, sure.
Do you worry about a HP drop when wearing Darkmantle? And do you play any differently because of that? Or do you still feel you have more than enough HP with like flasking and all that?
I have been flasking. I noticed I was the only rogue who flasked on our second run because it wasn't mandatory in that sense. But I do think it's worth. I mean, Lotus prices have been dropping, and I do think that if you don't have a flask up, you will notice a pretty big decline in HP. I think it's around 500 or 600. I'm mostly guessing now, but somewhere there.
Something around that.
It is pretty major in that sense because you could easily drop dead for something you wouldn't if you had a flask up or if you had a non-Darkmantle up. But I mean, if you feel I don't play any different whatsoever apart from playing more careful because it's a new instance in that sense. But I mean, I think the question pretty much answers itself in that way. Like you will lose HP, you can easily make up for it by flasking. If you feel it's a problem for your guild, then I mean, use more lips, I guess. I don't think that the HP drop is that important. Like I don't think it's gonna make or break anything in that sense.
Okay.
But it is annoying. It is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So while we're still on the topic of Darkmantle, then I know you're using it right now. Even with like all the RNG elements, do you feel there's any fights too short for Darkmantle? Because in Blackwing Lair, there was Razor Gore, where like sometimes like you already using every global to do stuff where it feels like extra energy that didn't really help. So do you feel there's any fights like that, like Fankriss maybe in AQ?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, if I would say like one fight that I found Darkmantle to be a bit underwhelming on, it's probably Sartura, because it kind of depends though. Like, if you don't use Adrenaline, if you save your AR for Fankriss, then Darkmantle is probably worth using, right? But outside of that, I feel it's a bit like every single time we've done Sartura, I've had like 1 or max 2 procs. And they usually happen together with an AR or a T or something. It's just very really like you nuke the ads with all your energy resources, right?
Yeah.
So during that time, which is like the most intense fight, if you want to be a parse god or goddess, then the ads is where it shines, right? And then I feel Darkmantle is slightly redundant because you have T, you likely have renataki as well, you have AR up and stuff. Then so if there's one fight that I don't really love it's probably Sartura, where you actually need the HP as well, like more. So if I would be de-equipping, it would be there, but I can't be bothered de-equipping it, so I just play with it. Okay. Fankriss is like if you most likely won't have AR up if you're in somewhat of a fast guild like for Fankriss, right? So there I think it's pretty decent. All in all, I like it. I like Darkmantle in one way, and in another way I truly despise it. Probably, yeah. We've had these discussions before, yeah. Right? I mean, I think it's a very, very good set that you can see energy net gains from like between 2.2 to 2.5k per run. Some of it might be wasted, but the absolute majority of it is like it's very good to get, right? So I think it's a very good set. It's definitely worth for every sword rogue to get. Dagger maybe less so, but it's still a good dagger set, especially when you get Death Sting and can swap away from the gloves and stuff. Yeah. So I do like Darkmantle. I think it was just as good as most of us anticipated. It's not game changing, but it's very, very good. And it can be very game changing if you get super good procs, you know.
I know you're using the Renataki trinket right now with like earthstrike. You're double trinketing active because you don't have a DFT.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd be able to answer this a little bit better. So someone was asking, they are kind of reluctant to drop Renatakis out of the rotation because they're used to using Renatakis, it smooths out the rotation a lot for them. So how do you weigh comfort versus like swapping to Absolute Abyss? Like say he got a Jom Gabar, but he still feels more comfortable using Renatakis. Would you still suggest like it's okay for him to stick with Renatakis and not go for the Jom Gabar then? Or like how do you feel about it?
This feels like one of those questions where there's only like I can't really answer this in a different way than of course it's better to use whatever you're comfortable with, right? However, I assume this guy is Daggers that's asking because Renataki has like 0 to no impact on a sword rotation in that sense. Yeah, it just eats up Dagger rotation, which is slow in other ways. But I mean, Renataki is a very good trinket for short burst fights either way. And if you don't have DFT, it's a very good trinket for long fights as well. For example, for me, it would be swapping Renataki for Hodge, right? Which would be basically only losing the 2% chance to get an extra attack. It's the exact same attack power bonus because I still use the CG shoulders. So I decided I just stick with Renataki on for the whole instance, right? And then I swapped out Earthstrike for a few trash packs when I had it on cooldown and just popped in Hoy there. But apart from that, you know, I just use dual use trinkets. Okay. I would say this is like the video I sent you. I misplayed it so hard. I got very good parses either way, but it just goes to show that other rogues are uncomfortable using it as well, right? Because I could have played this so much better. I didn't even know, for example, that Earthstrike triggered a 20-second cooldown, while Renataki triggered a 10-second cooldown. I figured they were both. Yeah, I figured they were both 20, so I was like, yeah, I'll just use Earthstrike directly because I usually pre-pop or use Blade Flurry early, which apparently isn't the case, which means I could have probably pushed my DPS by 200 or 300 if I played it correctly on Sartura, for example. There's plenty of these examples where like if you have them both equipped, you should most likely use Renataki first, unless it's a super long fight where you still only get one Renataki use out.
Yeah.
So there's different ways of doing it, and I would even go so far as to say that combo, as in Earthstrike Renataki or even Jom Gabar Renataki, could beat DFT on a few given fights.
Interesting. Yeah,
I don't think it's the case on any long fights, but I think like for parcels on Sartura, I feel like Renataki's with Earthstrike or Jom Gabar is going to be better, where you just use like Renataki for cleaving the ads. You cleave the ads and then you use everything. Like you could even save the adrenaline rush and stuff for when you go into the boss with Earthstrike or Jom Gabar up and everything. So double use trinket is very, very strong in AQ, something we didn't really anticipate in that sense. At least I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, have you had any experience with the armor pen trinket at all? Or have you guys seen it?
We haven't seen a single one drop. No, we haven't had a single one drop.
Okay.
In 3 reds. So.
All right then. Here's to finish up then. Someone's asking, is there any reason to take a rogue over a warrior for a tryhard speedrun guild in AQ40 if they're equally skilled?
I mean, that's a super unrealistic scenario.
Yeah.
Start off like you cannot say that someone is equally skilled or like there's always going to be some difference from player to player. There's always going to be rewards as well. Like you might have a rogue that's been there 100%. You might want to put some value into that as well. If you speak strictly performance-wise, so far we have noticed that rogues are actually pumping very hard in AQ. Like from our raids, it's a pretty scuffed sample size though, because we've had warriors die and stuff due to tanking trash and stuff like that. But so far we've seen, like, I think the last trade, I don't know if you can probably show
I can pull it up.
The logs for it. We saw me and Alexander on top, I think, overall on trash and boss damage, and you had one warrior, I think it was Tetsu, who beat us on bosses, right? So I mean, rogues have had a fairly big swing in in DPS here. I'm not sure if it's like simply depending on Darkmantle, or if it's the fact that warriors are playing it more safe, or if it doesn't, give their cooldowns an equal, advantage. There could be plenty of different reasons, or if our rogues are just more comfortable playing. I don't know what it is, but we have noticed a pretty big damage increase from rogues so far. Overall, on trash damage, I think it's because you get plenty of more blade flurry usage out than in BVL. But then I looked at logs and I noticed Alexander did like almost no blade flurry damage on trash while I did. So I don't know really what it is. So like after this extremely long rant, I would say it can completely depends. You want at least 4 rogues for Sartura, unless you have paladins or some other good solution for stunning. Outside of the 4 rogues, I would assume there is no real reason to bring a rogue unless you have rogues that actually out DPS warriors, because warriors are way more useful in the sense they can tank trash and stuff. However, rogues are also useful in the sense they can evasion a few trash packs that can mean they survive. So there is many bosses where rogues actually shine. There's also a few bosses where there's loads of twins, Katoon, Ouro to some extent. We just dodge more knockbacks. If we get knocked back, we reset our energy. While warriors sure they have intercept, but there's many times where energy/rage resources is stopped for a while, and fights like that, rogues will always prevail in that sense. So there's I do feel this is a better tier for rogues. You can also have the whole discussion where basically rogues, at least compared to rank 14 warriors, I mean, you will see a very high increase now from the non-rank 14 warriors when they get AQ gear, right? Because they will get on an equal or even higher level than the rank 14 gear. So basically, like rank 14 warriors, they've already reached their peak in some regard, right? They can only get upgrades in form of like off pieces and trinkets and stuff, while rogues are replacing their whole tier. Same with non-ranking warriors, right? We get a very big upswing. So you're gonna see rogues scaling better, because that's at some point, like especially if you're Horde, but also as Alliance, like if you have VCB, you have everything pumped up. You're more or less like rage capped as a warrior. It doesn't really get much better. However, rogues never really deal with that cap, so we just get gear and we do more damage, right? So I would say in one sense we scale better than warriors at this point.
Okay, cool.
So I don't think I answered this question, but I mean
it is kind of a very
there's gonna be
there's no real way to answer that.
There is no real way to answer it. Like rogues are getting better, warriors are also getting better, but in a lesser sense. But warriors are needed for trash. There's also the argument to be made, you might want to use more mages, because the Katoon trash itself is a fucking boss, So where range really prevail. So there's plenty of like things you need to keep in mind, and you also most definitely now need 2 warlocks for a speedrun because you're gonna use fire mages, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I just like to add that, I mean, I am by no means any expert on AQ yet.
Yeah.
I am mostly guessworking here, and there's loads of things that aren't like, you know, things that I say today that might get, you know, completely debunked and like, oh, Fjeenzy is stupid and stuff like that, because there's
everyone's still
so much
learning.
more to be discovered,
Still
right?
learning.
Yeah, we're still learning, and but so far, like the most positive thing, I find AQ really fun to play. It's a fun instance, way more engaging in that sense. It's super easy and disappointing in that sense, but it's still more engaging than BVL because it's a longer instance in that sense. And the more positive parts about it is probably the fact that rogues seem to actually compete on damage a bit more. There could be plenty of reasons for this, but yeah, I am positively I have a positive vibe regarding AQ so far.